Why do influential people seem to put in less effort than others? Have you noticed how influential people respond to provocations? They don't react, they don't defend themselves, and they don't try to prove anything. There's a calmness about them that confuses aggressors because it goes against everything we expect from someone under attack. This apparent passivity masks something most people don't understand. In this video, on Machiavelli's Code, I'll reveal why the most powerful people rarely need to raise their voice, explain themselves, or fight back. By the end, you'll know exactly how to build a presence so unshakable, so untouchable, that no one dares to confront you. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Machiavelli's Code, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because here, we don't just talk about power, we learn how to live it. 1. The hidden psychology of confrontation. Every confrontation begins long before a single word is spoken. In the very first moments of any interaction, people are not listening to what you say. They are scanning you. Without even knowing it, they are asking themselves 3 questions. Is this person a threat? Can they be used? Or must I treat them with respect? This silent evaluation shapes everything that follows. The problem is, most people fail the test before it even begins. They fold into themselves, shrinking with nervous gestures and submissive smiles, hoping kindness will protect them. Or they overcompensate, puffing up their chest, raising their voice, trying to appear strong, but only exposing their insecurity. Both mistakes lead to the same outcome: conflict. Because when you appear submissive, people sense they can take advantage of you. And when you appear defensive, you invite a fight. Either way, you've already surrendered control. The powerful play a different game. They don't rush to prove themselves. They don't fidget, don't over-explain, don't rise to every provocation. Instead, they remain centered, calm, grounded, and unreadable. Their presence communicates something subtle but undeniable. You cannot move me. That silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It unsettles aggressors because it denies them what they want most: a reaction. They throw hooks into the water, waiting for you to bite. But you remain still. And in that stillness, uncertainty grows inside them. Uncertainty is dangerous. When someone can't predict you, they hesitate. They become careful. And that hesitation is the root of respect. Think about the difference between a barking dog and one that just watches silently. The loud one is easy to measure. Its noise shows its limits. But the quiet one, you pay attention. You tread carefully, because you don't know what it will do. This is the hidden psychology of power. True authority is not about being the loudest, nor about being the most aggressive. It's about carrying yourself with calm restraint and letting others feel the weight of your self-control. The less you reveal, the more others project strength onto you. So remember this: your greatest weapon is not always action. It is the discipline of controlled inaction. In a world addicted to reaction, the one who stays composed commands the room without ever raising his voice. 2. Machiavelli's lesson: respectful fear. Machiavelli observed something unsettling during the chaos of Renaissance politics. The men who were too good, too transparent, too predictable, were always the first to be used. Their virtue became a script others could read, their kindness a map that revealed every weak point. People always knew how they would respond, and that made them easy to manipulate. Why does predictability invite exploitation? Because once others can calculate your reactions, they can plan their moves around you. If they know you will always forgive, they will not fear betraying you. If they know you will always explain yourself, They will keep pressing until you exhaust yourself. And if they know you will never set boundaries, they will continue taking until nothing is left. Machiavelli understood that real power does not come from being feared for your cruelty. It comes from being respected for your unpredictability. He called this dynamic respectful fear. It is not the trembling fear that tyrants inspire, but the quiet caution people feel when they know your kindness has limits, when they sense that crossing you comes with consequences. Think of the difference. A man who tries to be endlessly agreeable is rarely taken seriously. His yes carries no weight because everyone knows it will bend under pressure. But the man whose generosity is paired with firmness, whose silence could mean patience or warning, is treated differently. People pause before testing him. They hesitate before taking advantage. His presence alone discourages abuse, not because he threatens, but because he cannot be assumed. This balance is subtle. Too much kindness without boundaries leads to exploitation. Too much harshness without compassion leads to isolation. But when a man carries both, the open hand and the closed fist, he commands natural authority. His boundaries do not need to be shouted. They are felt. His respect is not begged for. It is given freely, because others sense instinctively that crossing him would be a mistake. And here lies the truth. Confrontation becomes illogical when people know you live by standards that do not bend. You do not have to fight every battle, raise your voice at every insult, or prove your strength in every room. Your consistency, your refusal to compromise on self-respect, speaks louder than aggression ever could. This is the paradox Machiavelli revealed. The man who does not seek to dominate others is the one most difficult to dominate. For his strength is not in cruelty, but in the quiet certainty that his boundaries are real. And that certainty creates the only kind of fear worth cultivating, the respectful fear that ensures peace without the need for war. 3. Sun Tzu, winning without fighting. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, wrote a line that has echoed through centuries of strategy and human behavior. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. At first glance, it sounds like a lesson only for generals and warriors. But if you look closer, you realize it's also the foundation for how power works in everyday life. The greatest victories are not the ones won through endless arguments or dramatic confrontations. They are the ones where conflict never even begins. Think about it. When you walk into a room, you're already communicating. Your posture, your silence, the steadiness of your breath. They all send signals louder than words. People are unconsciously measuring you, asking, "Can I test this person? Can I push them? Or would that be a mistake?" If you appear defensive or desperate to prove yourself, you invite pressure. But if you remain unshaken, calm, centered, and quietly sure of who you are, something shifts. You create what can only be called an invisible barrier. It doesn't come from aggression. It comes from presence. Others feel it without understanding why. That trying to confront you would cost more than simply respecting you. This is what Sun Tzu meant. True strength doesn't waste itself in constant battles. It shapes the environment so that battles become unnecessary. It turns potential enemies into bystanders. It prevents problems before they ever take form. Imagine the difference between two dogs. One barking endlessly, straining at the leash, desperate to prove it's dangerous. The other sits silently, watching, unreadable. Which one forces you to slow your steps? Which one plants hesitation in your mind? The loud one reveals its limits. The silent one unsettles you, because uncertainty is far more intimidating than noise. The same law applies to human interactions. The person who argues at every provocation shows they can be moved. But the one who refuses to be shaken projects authority without effort. Their silence isn't passivity, it's strategy. It communicates, I don't need to prove myself. But if you cross me, you'll regret it. And here lies the paradox. The less you fight, the less you need to. The calm authority you carry disarms hostility before it begins. People sense you are not to be played with, not because you threaten, but because you don't bend. That subtle but powerful energy makes confrontation illogical, and respect the only natural outcome. 4. Seneca's discipline of impressions. Seneca lived in an age where one wrong word could mean death. To survive under Nero, one of the most unpredictable and dangerous rulers in Roman history, he relied on something most men still fail to master today: emotional control. He understood a truth that feels almost unfair. It isn't the insult that destroys you, but your reaction to it. A man who cannot govern himself is an open book. His enemies already know how to provoke him, how to pull his strings, how to break his focus. Seneca refused to give that power away. He practiced what he called the discipline of impressions. Before walking into the court, before facing betrayal, before hearing whispers of slander, he would rehearse his response. He would imagine the insult before it came, the disrespect before it was spoken, the betrayal before it unfolded. And by anticipating it, he robbed it of its power. When the moment finally arrived, he was not surprised. He was ready. His face remained still, his voice measured, his mind clear. This is why he survived where others collapsed under the weight of their emotions. Seneca's strength was not in force, but in restraint. He understood that every outburst is a confession of weakness. Every display of irritation is an admission. You have found my button, and now you can push it any time you want. Think about your own life. How often have you lost credibility, not because of the situation itself, but because of how you handled it? An argument spirals because you couldn't remain silent. A rival feels superior because he saw you flinch. Even in relationships, anger gives the other person control. They know exactly where your wounds are. Seneca's wisdom is brutally simple. Indignation is a luxury powerful people cannot afford. To be respected, you must learn to absorb the sting without flinching. To be influential, you must learn to hear lies without rushing to defend yourself. To be untouchable, you must let others exhaust themselves trying to provoke you, while you remain unshaken. Emotional control is not about being passive. It's about choosing the timing, the tone, and the ground of every battle. When you master this, you stop being a puppet to other people's words. You stop being predictable. And in that silence, in that self-command, you become someone others cannot easily confront. That is why Seneca outlived countless rivals, and that is why his wisdom still applies today. Control yourself, or be controlled by anyone clever enough to exploit your reactions. 5. The elegance of mystery. Baltasar Gracian, the Spanish philosopher, understood something timeless about influence and human behavior. The most powerful people rarely reveal everything. They are not open books, not eager to be read, not desperate to be understood. Instead, they create what he called elegant distance. This doesn't mean they are cold or unapproachable. It means they are deliberate. They speak less, but when they do, their words carry weight. They do not scramble to explain themselves, nor do they rush to prove their worth. They understand that over-explaining is often a form of insecurity, and insecurity invites exploitation. Think of the people you instinctively respect. They are rarely the loudest in the room. They don't need to dominate every conversation. Instead, their silence creates an atmosphere of gravity. You lean in to hear them. You wonder what they're thinking. That mystery gives them power. Gracian observed that predictability is dangerous. When people know exactly what you will say, how you will react, what you will tolerate, you become easy to control. But when you maintain a measure of restraint, when you hold something back, others instinctively tread more carefully. They treat you with more respect because they are never quite sure how far they can go. In daily life, this principle shows itself everywhere. At work, the colleague who constantly talks, justifying every move, often loses authority. The one who speaks only when needed, but with clarity and precision, earns trust. In relationships, the person who rushes to prove value often ends up ignored, while the one who sets boundaries calmly is taken seriously. Silence, then, is not emptiness. It is a signal. It communicates self-possession, discipline, and strength. It leaves people with unanswered questions, and unanswered questions build intrigue. As Gracian wrote, "A man who is too clear becomes common." True presence does not require constant expression. It requires knowing when to hold back, when to let silence speak louder than words, and when to allow mystery to protect your dignity. Gracian's insight reminds us, power is not always about what you show. Sometimes it is about what you choose to withhold. 6. The brutal reality of human nature. Arthur Schopenhauer revealed a truth most people spend their entire lives trying to deny. Human beings act, above all, from self-interest. Even the noblest gestures, when examined closely, often have strings attached. Respect, loyalty, even love, things we like to imagine as pure, are frequently conditional. They exist as long as needs are being met, as long as circumstances are favorable, as long as desires are satisfied. This is not a cynical view, but a realistic one. Schopenhauer did not mean that kindness or loyalty are illusions. They exist, but they are fragile. They bend under pressure. They shift when priorities change. And the man who expects permanent gratitude or unwavering fairness is the man destined for disappointment. Look at life closely. How often have you seen good deeds forgotten the moment they no longer serve someone? How often has loyalty dissolved when tested by inconvenience? How often has affection cooled when it demanded sacrifice? These moments sting only when we expect people to act against their nature. But when we accept that self-interest drives much of human behavior, the sting loses its sharpness. The wise man, Schopenhauer said, does not become bitter. He simply stops being surprised. He learns to give without demanding repayment, to act rightly because it aligns with his own principles, not because he expects eternal recognition. He deals with others knowing that loyalty may fade, respect may waver, and love may change. This awareness doesn't make him cold, it makes him calm. And calmness, in a world ruled by reactivity, is read as strength. Most people are rattled when their expectations collapse. They become angry when others fail them. They waste energy on indignation, on asking, how could they do this to me? But the man who already understands human nature simply nods. He is unmoved. He doesn't take betrayal personally, because he never built his peace on the illusion of permanence. This is the quiet power Schopenhauer points us toward, the ability to live without constant shock at people's selfishness, to expect it, not in a resentful way, but in a prepared way, and when you no longer flinch at the flaws of others, you rise above them. Calmness becomes your shield, detachment becomes your strength, and people sensing they cannot easily destabilize you, begin to treat you with the very respect they so often withhold from others. 7. Nietzsche and liberation from approval. Friedrich Nietzsche described dependence on approval as a prison, one more suffocating than chains made of iron. Because while iron binds the body, the need for validation shackles the mind. Most people never escape this prison. They live their entire lives bending to the opinions of others, shifting their words, their clothing, even their beliefs depending on who is watching. One mask for family, another for colleagues, another still for strangers on the street or followers online. But here's the paradox Nietzsche saw. The more you chase approval, the less of it you truly command. The more you try to please everyone, the less anyone respects you. People instinctively know when someone's identity is rented rather than owned. The moment you step outside this cycle, when you no longer rely on applause, likes, or recognition to define your worth, you become rare. In a world starving for attention, the one who does not seek it becomes magnetic. The crowd turns to look at the person who is not even trying to be seen. This is not arrogance. It is independence. It is the quiet confidence of a person who has set their own standards, who measures success not by the shifting moods of the crowd, but by the unshakable compass of their own values. Such people are difficult to manipulate because the usual tools, praise, criticism, gossip, rejection, lose their grip. And this mental independence makes confrontation almost impossible. Why? Because most conflict is an attempt to control your emotions. Someone insults you, hoping you'll rage. Someone withholds approval, hoping you'll chase it. Someone excludes you, hoping you'll shrink. But if your sense of self is not tied to their reaction, the entire game collapses. You cannot be baited by what you do not need. Nietzsche's challenge is brutal but liberating. If you want true freedom, stop building your identity from borrowed opinions. Set your own measure and live by it, even if it leaves you standing apart, especially if it does. For when the world sees a person who does not flinch under criticism, who does not glow brighter under praise, who does not beg for recognition, it sees something terrifyingly rare, a free individual, and freedom, more than anything else, is magnetic. 8. Jung and the Shadow. Carl Jung made one of the most unsettling discoveries about human nature. The people who appear most stable, most magnetic, most authentic are not those who deny their flaws, but those who integrate them. He called this the shadow, the darker, hidden, less socially acceptable parts of the self. Most people spend their lives running from this shadow. They try to bury their anger, their jealousy, their selfish impulses, their fears. They put on masks of politeness and virtue, pretending to be saints in a world that knows better. But the shadow never disappears. What is denied doesn't vanish. It leaks out in subtle ways. Passive aggression, envy, hypocrisy, secret bitterness. And those who suppress their shadow the hardest are often the ones most ruled by it. Jung saw that the truly authentic person was the one who dared to confront this hidden side and accept it, not glorify it, not indulge it, but acknowledge it as part of the whole. A man who admits he is capable of cruelty is less likely to become unconsciously cruel. A woman who acknowledges her envy is less likely to sabotage others in secret. Integration breeds awareness, and awareness breeds control. This radical honesty creates a kind of authority that cannot be faked. People instinctively sense when someone is not lying to themselves. It is why we trust individuals who are unapologetically real, even if their truth is imperfect. It is why we respect those who can admit weakness without collapsing, who can reveal flaws without shame. When you integrate your shadow, you radiate an energy that says, I know who I am. Nothing you expose can destabilize me, because I have already faced it myself. This is the power of wholeness. Others may try to insult you, to shame you, to uncover some hidden fault. But if you have already accepted that fault, they find no weapon to use against you. Jung's insight is both frightening and liberating. Peace does not come from polishing a false image. It comes from embracing the totality of who you are, light and dark alike. And in doing so, you become untouchable. For the man who is whole fears no exposure, and the person who fears no exposure commands natural respect. 9. Why no one will confront you. In the end, power is not about noise. It is not about forcing your will, shouting louder, or demanding respect from the world. Those who truly command authority never need to announce it. You don't win by showing force. Force is crude. It makes enemies, creates resistance, and exposes your insecurities. You don't win by begging for respect either, because the very act of asking proves you don't already have it. Respect is never granted to the one who pleads. It's granted to the one who embodies it. The way you win is quieter. You win by mastering your presence. Presence is built not in a single act, but in the habits of your being. Calmness when others lose control, boundaries that you enforce without anger, unpredictability that keeps people from mapping out your every move, emotional control that denies anyone the ability to manipulate you, and authenticity that makes you impossible to discredit. Think about it. Social predators will always exist. There will always be those who test your limits, who look for weakness, who try to pull your strings. But when they look at you and see no obvious button to press, no quick path to destabilize you, no clear weakness to exploit, they grow uncertain. And uncertainty is the enemy of confrontation. Predators move on to easier prey. That is the essence of authority. It does not come from threats. It does not come from trying to intimidate. It comes from building a foundation so solid that others know instinctively challenging you is a waste of time. And remember, power isn't about appearances. It's about understanding the hidden rules that govern human behavior. That's what we explore here, every week, on the Machiavelli blog. If this message has resonated with you and opened your eyes to something new, don't just watch. Join us. Subscribe to the Machiavelli blog for more strategies on power, respect, and human psychology. Share your thoughts with us in the comments. I've read them all, and your perspectives will help shape our next videos. And if you find value here, share it with those who need to hear it. This isn't just another channel. This is Machiavelli's blog, and together we're uncovering truths most people are afraid to face. See you next time. Stay disciplined, stay smart, and never stop mastering the rules.